ecological compensation. Very famous, very long is the ecological public benefit force compensation and the natural reserve compensation. These are some programs launched, but not all. And also in the local city, like Beijing, Guangzhou, and actually all the provinces have finished this kind of analysis to identify the critical area to protect. It means the bottom line we should protect. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Wang, for the excellent presentation for useful information on ecosystem conservation policy in China. Okay, the next panelist is Dr. Bo from Vietnam. He's the Vice President of the Central Institute for Economic Management. He's one of the
okay, thank you very much. Okay, my comments much more about policy. Right? We understand the importance of green growth and sustainability of development. But the question is whether we can have the optimum choice or appropriate policy to be dealing with that strategy. So my comment basically about three things. One is about the challenges in terms of policy for the promoting green growth and sustainable development. Second, what the economists in East Asia think about the green growth and what's the key policy message they would like to send to the policy makers, and of course something about Vietnam. The question is whether there's quite too luxury good for Vietnam to pursue. Right. Okay, we know we cannot living in the old manner of development. A brown economy, business as usual. We understand that is unsustainable, and like many developed countries in the past, the choice, grow first, and later on we can clean up the economy. Because that's maybe too costly and maybe too late to correct the mistake, right? So now we understand we need to move to the greener growth and more sustainable development, and we hope transition costs can be offset by two things. One is we can protect environment, so the next generation can live in a better condition. They can be better off, at least not worse off. And the second, we can develop the so-called green sector, right, which can create value added and also can create jobs. But at the same time, how can avoid the things that's kind of fashion, Many talk about green growth, and that's maybe more like a slogan rather than we can do something in reality. And I think there is three challenges for policy. One is adjustment cost may be too high, right? Why? Because of opportunity cost and because of time cost for the firms and for the consumer, even for the public sector, for the government, for policymakers to change their behavior, right? And second, we don't understand much about how we can price the inputs in terms of natural resources and environment, right? You need to have very rigorous accounting so you can know about the cost and about the benefit, and otherwise they can do everything as business as usual and think about the green growth as the second best policy option. And the last but not least challenge is I think green growth and sustainability of development, there's a global and regional issues, right? So not easy to solve the problem of the cost sharing and benefit distribution. So that's why if you look at the what happened with the Helsinki conference, Rio, in Brazil and South Africa, very hard for the people to come with the consensus. because that's the problem. So unless I think we don't have a very proactive cooperation, or we can have global or international public goods, service, very hard to solve that problem. Okay, what are the key policy for green growth in Asia, in East Asia? 2 years ago, about 30 economies, they think about economic green growth together with many other issues like the imbalances, whatever. And they send the letter to the G20 and East Asia summit, and they list about 6 or 7 the key policy. That's very much related to both sides of the problem, the supply side and demand side, right? For the demand side, public sector, the government should change behavior because they are the largest consumers. So they need to take the lead in purchasing green goods and services, right? There's a great pressure on firms, on the market. And the second, we don't need to think market-based mechanism and green growth as a true thing, contradiction. But market-based mechanism also can be used a very inefficient way for economic Asian firms to internalize social and environmental costs and encourage diffusion green technology. And there's many countries try to apply many kind of tax fees, trade mechanism, and even they have some experiment with the carbon taxes. And that's very important for many countries to end the subsidies to the consumption of energy, right? Because you can have overconsumption of energy. That's already happened in Indonesia and Vietnam in the past, right? And PPP, public-private partnership, is also important to solve the problem. And we need to liberalize trade in goods and services related to environmental goods and services, right? And one thing I think very important is that you need to distinguish 2 kinds of technology. One is developed, supported by the government, and another one, very private one, technology. And we need to have different kind of intellectual and property right in relation to those issues. And for those very much based on the government support, we need to have certain time for the IPR and whatever intellectual property right. So developing country can benefit from the technology, green or environmental friendly technology. And of course, as I mentioned, we need to regional, international public goods cooperation at that. And one thing is OECD, they use a new technique to estimate the so-called the carbon trade, and they think the carbon trade now account more than 25%, 20% in the year 2005. And I have to say China contribute a lot in terms of world carbon trade, and the speed of world carbon trade now 2 times higher than total world carbon emission. So that's also one very important issue to think about, how we can gradually reduce the world carbon trade. Okay, Vietnam. We have already more than 25 years of reform, a little bit similar to the case of China. And we have a quite good, impressive achievement, particularly in terms of economic growth. For more than 25 years, on average, economic growth of about 7%. And in terms of poverty reduction, and basically we already achieved MDG, Millennium Development Goals, in terms of absolute poverty reduction. But we have to already have to pay very high cost for rather high economic growth. One is our economy very much based on expansion of investment and public investment, and over exploitation of natural resources. And we are not very efficient in terms of using energy for production, in terms of intensity. So 1 unit of GDP how much you need to energy for producing 1 unit of GDP. So in the case of Vietnam, we need 2 times higher than, or three times higher than, say, compared to the case of Japan, right? And of course now many cities in Vietnam polluted, and deforestation also very serious. And of course now the thing a little bit improved, but 5 or 7 years ago we just second place after I think Nigeria, whatever, right? And land erosion and all kind of that. If you in Vietnam, you can feel that, right? So that's Vietnam. Now we have 2 kinds of strategy. One is very much in terms of economic development. We need to have more efficient way of resource allocation, right? So in the new strategy for the next 10 years, we emphasize on 3 issues: institutional reform, more market-based, open up, continue to open up economy, infrastructure development, human resource development. And for the next 5 years, we try to restructure of the state-owned enterprises sector, public investment, and financial sector, banking sector. That's the most sector which now prevent the efficiency of resource allocation. In terms of sustainability of development, so over the last 2 years, we adopted basically 3 strategies. One is how can we use a more inefficient way our natural resources and to have better environmental protection. Second strategy to be dealing with climate change, because Vietnam is one of 4 or 5 countries in Asia suffer most negatively from the climate change. Right? Some estimate that maybe in 50 years, 20% of Vietnamese land under the sea level, and so that's a very serious problem. And the third strategy, so far we don't have any target set, say by 2020 about greenhouse gas emission, but we also don't have any commitment, international commitment in that, but we understand that we need to have new strategy for reducing the greenhouse gas emission. Right. What's the key main ideas and the key policy or measure we try to implement? Of course, we have to overview on our stock, natural resources, environment and issues, whatever, and enhancement of public awareness, how the consumer, how the firms can change the behavior. That's very important. And we have the whole strategy using communication, mass media to convince all the people that green cross sustainability of development is very important. In terms of how to use natural resources more efficient and how to protect the environment, we introduce the new concept, the so-called, I don't know in English, I try to translate it, economization. In the sense, we try to use a more market-based instrument, for natural resources use and environmental protection. That's not just about the fee tax, but also about the public-private partnership, about whatever from now on. If the government would like to invest in some project, that's compulsory for them to have ecological and environmental assessment, impact assessment. So that's I think the key thing. And for the how to cope with the climate change, we try to learn and try to prepare everything to cope with that issues. And we also need, and now we have very close cooperation with more advanced countries like the Netherlands, Holland, South Korea, so they can assist Vietnam to be dealing with climate change. Okay, in terms of how to reduce greenhouse gas emission, that's we have 2 purposes. One is to make our economy more efficient. Another one is reduce the greenhouse gas emission. Why that's important for efficient way of economic development? Because as I mentioned, energy intensity very high. So if you can reduce the cost of using energy, so that means your economy more competitive. And the second, in the future, with the many FTA free trade area, more developed, more advanced countries can use many technical barriers to prevent our export. So if you can do something with that, so you satisfy all the technical barriers, so you can encourage export. So that's not just about sustainability, about gas emission, but that's about competitiveness of our economy. And as I mentioned, strengthening international risk and cooperation is also important. And we understand that to do the job, we need a new institution, new mechanism. So that's why 2 years ago, we established a National Committee for Coping with Climate Change. Prime Minister in charge of that committee. And last month, we also established a National Committee for Competitiveness and Sustainable Development, and Deputy Prime Minister, one Deputy Prime Minister now in charge of that commission. And we start to reform the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Natural Resource Use. So we hope that's only starting point, and we hope gradually Vietnam can do the two things. One is restructuring of the economy. Another one is to have a new way of development, so we can use a natural resource more efficient, and we can protect environment. So I stop here. Thank you very much.
Dr. Moore, for the informative messages, strategies, and ideas. Particularly, the implementation of economization of managing natural resources and environmental protection is very impressive. Okay, so next panelist, I would like to invite Dr. An. Dr. An actually has worked in OECD for 1.5 years as a senior researcher. She's gonna give some information on green growth and the issues of developing countries. Okay.
Now, good evening. I was asked to talk about a little bit about green growth and the issues of developing countries, and also OECD work on the green growth strategy and in relevance to developing countries. Because as you know, the OECD is one of the big guys to push forward the concept of green growth as a new paradigm for in policy, international policy arena. But okay, I was briefly just talk about green growth concept, and especially in terms of what does that mean to the developing countries. So my question is, what are the key elements of green growth policy framework in developing countries? I'm going to talk about 3 dimensions. The first one is the generating enabling conditions through national green growth plans. This is more like capacity building, if I may say. So it includes shift government expenditure to more eco-friendly or environmental friendly in way, and a more effective enforcement of legislation, and education and training, and resource and land rights regimes, and create enabling conditions for psychological and behavioral change, and facilitating businesses to fully integrate sustainability and equity concerns. I'm not going to go in detail for each of these items, but I wanted to just tell more about this one, the resource and land right regimes. As we all know, all the natural resources and rich biodiversity are located in developing countries, and all in many areas the natural resources are common resources. So the rights for the natural resources are not clearly defined. So it causes a lot of problems to manage natural resources. So in developing countries, I think this is more relevant to developing countries, how the government is going to define property rights for resources, natural resources, and land they are managing. Also, traditional knowledge. So there has been a lot of discussion under CBD about the